Good day, everyone. I am Dr. Erwin R. Brancilio, and I am here to discuss a curriculum evaluation and the teacher. So, for our learning outcomes, first is explain the process of curriculum evaluation, identify the different curriculum evaluation models, determine the levels of learning outcomes and levels of assessment, elucidate the relationship between planning, implementing, and evaluating of curriculum, and recognize the importance of curriculum evaluation. So we have three topics under this. Um, we have what, why, and how to evaluate a curriculum. Curriculum evaluation through learning assessment, and planning, implementing, and evaluating, understanding the connections. So let us begin with the first topic. But before that, let us discuss first what is curriculum evaluation. So it is a process done in order to gather data that enables one to decide whether to accept, change, eliminate the whole curriculum of a textbook. That is according to Ornstein in Hankins, 1988. You might notice that the source is quite old. However, the definition of curriculum evaluation is still the same even during the modern times. In this example of the definition or explanation about the curriculum, the example is a textbook. However, as I have learned before in my previous video, that curriculum is more than just a textbook. However, when it comes with its evaluation, it is also the same. One is whether you are going to accept the curriculum that you have just made, or what are the changes that you have to change, or what are the different things that you have to change in the curriculum. For example, your lesson plan or the entire curriculum, and eliminate something that you think that is no longer applicable to the curriculum that you are actually implementing. So in this case of the definition, it is about the textbook we're in. No, we look into it that it is also a curriculum, and yes, we or as the different authors or even the ones using the textbook can evaluate. However, the changes can be done by the author. Another one is, according to Gay in 1995, identify the weaknesses and strengths as well as problems encountered in the implementation to improve the curriculum development process. So there are two things that need to be identified. First is the strength of the curriculum, and the second one are the weaknesses of the curriculum, including also the problems encountered during the implementation, which is to improve the curriculum development process. So we're in this sum up what curriculum evaluation is. No, yeah, in curriculum evaluation, it is not only about identifying the weaknesses or identifying the strength or what are the problems that you have encountered, but it is more than that. No, so it is the combination of the different strengths and weaknesses or anything that you can be able to identify during the evaluation. And of course, the at the heart of the evaluation is the development process, meaning to say that it is part of the evaluation that you have to do something about the different weaknesses that the one who evaluated it found. And of course, you have to maintain and enhance the strength based on the evaluation. So let us now look into what, why, and how to evaluate a curriculum. So there are two ways of looking at curriculum evaluation. So first is curriculum program evaluation may focus on the overall aspects of a curriculum program. For example, K-12 curriculum. So it is an overall curriculum. And um, the the evaluation of it can be in a form of an overall aspect. Let's say, for example, the K-12 curriculum. So, what are the different aspects in the K-12 curriculum that can be changed? Let's say a certain program there in the K-12 curriculum. Let's say the grade 11 subjects, the entire set of subjects, the entire set of subjects for grade 12, the uh, the work immersion program there in the K-12 curriculum, and so on and so forth. So it is an overall aspect. So um, it is opposite of the second one, which is about the component evaluation. So curriculum program component evaluation, these components may include separate evaluation of achieve learning outcomes, curriculum process, and instructional materials. So as you can see here, in these two ways of looking at curriculum evaluation, so there is a general evaluation. So the first one is about the overall aspect, and the second one is about the specific detail. Because in the teaching and learning processes, like for example, when we follow the lesson plan, there are achieved learning outcomes. There is that curriculum process or curriculum processes and the different materials that you use in the delivery of this curriculum process. So this can be evaluated separately. This can also be evaluated chronologically. Okay, so these are some of the reasons for curriculum evaluation. So first is curriculum evaluation identifies the strengths and weaknesses of an existing curriculum that will be the basis of the intended plan, design, or implementation. So this refers to as needs assessment. So as I've said a while ago, no, that the purpose of the curriculum is to determine the strengths and weaknesses, and you have to do something about it. So we need to say that there could be an action plan in order to address the needs or to address the problems that you have encountered. Or you can also create or design a program of implementation on how you are going to implement the different changes that you found necessary during or after the evaluation. So when evaluation is done in the middle of the curriculum development, it will tell if the design or implemented curriculum can produce or is producing the desired results. This is related to monitoring. So monitoring can be done at the middle of the curriculum development so that you can be able to determine whether you are on the right track or you have to change something so that you can be able to attain the goal of the curriculum development that you are doing. So that's why it is monitoring. It is done at the middle of the curriculum development. So based on some standards, curriculum evaluation will guide whether the results have equaled or exceeded the standards. Thus can be labeled as success. This is sometimes called terminal assessment. So we have different standards, and of course, these standards should be followed. So the curriculum evaluation will guide whether the result have equaled or exceeded the standard. So it is not, we are not talking about whether uh, when you evaluated a certain curriculum, it is below the standard. If it is below the standard, then therefore there are a lot of things that you have to change. However, if it's equal or the same as the standard or exceeded the standard, so then therefore you can say that it is a well developed and there is a success in the curriculum implementation during your evaluation. So curriculum evaluation provides information necessary for teachers, school managers, curriculum specialists for policy recommendations that will enhance achieved learning outcomes. This is the basis of decision making. So just think about the situation that we have before the K-12 curriculum. Just imagine um, the kind of evaluation that these experts have done so that they can be able to arrive to the current K-12 curriculum that we have. So they thought that these are no longer needed. They thought that they're based on their findings, K-12 curriculum were created, no, or was created. Now, you might also think na why there is a need, no? So, well, changes in the curriculum is based on the need of the community, based on the need of those who will be using the curriculum. So, since based on research, no, based on their investigation, on their evaluation, that we need a new curriculum. So that's why they implemented it. So by law, no. So it cannot just be implemented by just saying, "We want to implement this." There should be a law dictating that this is the new curriculum that we should follow. So that's why it is now known as K plus 12. So kinder is mandatory. Grades 11 and 12, the senior high school, are also, these two grade levels are also mandatory for one to be able to say that it is they graduated in the basic education or in high school. So these are the different curriculum evaluation models. So these are models that you can use as a pattern in order for you to evaluate curriculum. So this may be applicable to some curriculum, but may also be applicable to other curriculum. But does this cannot be applied, let's say one model can be applied in the entire curriculum. So there are only some that you can use this in, let's say, in the evaluation of the textbook or in the evaluation of the lesson plan, and so on and so forth. So we have Bradley Effectiveness Model, Tyler Objective Centered Model, Daniel Stufflebeam Context Input Process Product Model or CIPP, and a Stake Responsive Model. So this is the Bradley's Effectiveness Model for Curriculum Development Indicator. So it is quite easy. There are questions and there are also indicators in here in the table, and you just have to answer it as yes or a no. Now, there's a note at the bottom of the table. If any of the indicators is answered with a no, action should be made to make it yes. So, diba? As I've said, you have to identify the strength and the weaknesses. So, in this example, of a model, so anything that you will say no, meaning that it is considered as a weakness, then therefore you have to do something to make it yes, or making it as a strength. So, for example, the first one, vertical curriculum continuity. Does the curriculum reflect the format that enables teachers quickly access what is being taught in the year levels below or above the current level? So if your answer is yes, then it's good, no? Meaning to say that according to Bradley, that you are following a very good curriculum development. Now, however, let's say with all honesty, you said it is a no, then therefore there should be an action that so that you can be able to make it as a yes. And of course, it is not an easy task because you're talking about vertical curriculum continuity. So yeah, so there are the bottom line here is that if you answer it's yes, then it's good. If you answer it as no, then you have to do something so that it will become yes. Applicable in all curriculum, let's say even in a big in the curriculum, the entire curriculum. So for example, this one, theory into practice. Is there clarity of vision, mission, graduation outcomes, program philosophy, learning outcomes in the curriculum? So this can be done in a certain curriculum, let's say the K-12 curriculum. So we also have Tyler objectives centered model. So this one, no, so there are 6 curriculum elements, then evaluation process, and then the answer also is yes or a no. with the same context, like if your answer is no, then you have to do something to make it yes. So, for example, objectives, intended learning outcomes, predetermined intended learning outcomes or objectives. Is it a yes or is it a no? Situation or context, identify the situation context that gives opportunity to develop behavior or achieve objectives. This may not be a question, but you will just analyze the statement for the evaluation process, whether in the curriculum development, whether these statements are present or not. So for example, in the last one, use the result to make the necessary modification. Is it a yes or is it a no? All right. So let us now move on to CIPP model by Daniel Stufflebeam. So there are four stages of as the focus of evaluation. So these are the CIPP: context evaluation, input evaluation, process evaluation, and product evaluation. So under the context evaluation, assess needs and problems in the context for decision makers to determine the goals and objectives of the program or the curriculum. So that means that there is an evaluation of the context, wherein there is a need to identify the needs and the problems in the context of decision makers. So who are these decision makers? So this could be the ones who made the curriculum. This could be the teachers, the curricularists, school managers, or school administrators. So anyone who are involved in the curriculum development. And then that is to determine the goals and objectives of the program or the curriculum. On the other hand, if it is input evaluation, assesses alternative means based on the inputs for the achievement of objectives to help decision makers to choose options for optimal means. So again, involved there is an involvement of the decision makers. These are the curricularists or the teachers also. So um, process evaluation monitors the processes both to ensure that the means are actually being implemented and make necessary modification. So process evaluation has something to do with the evaluation of the implementation of the curriculum. And when we speak of product evaluation, you are looking into the comparison or compares actual ends with intended ends and leads to a series of recycling decisions. So what happened at the end of the curriculum implementation? What happened to the product? Is there really an attainment of the objectives as shown at the end of the process? So this can be seen in the product evaluation. Now, these are those steps that you have to undergo in order for you to follow the CIPP model. So identify the kind of decision to be made, identify the kinds of data to make the decision, collect the data needed, establish the criteria to determine quality of data, analyze data based on the criteria, and organize needed information needed for decision makers. So um, for C, I have the step 1. For I have the step 2 and 3. P for 4 and 5. And 6 for product evaluation. Now, it is also indicated here on the table the importance of the data. So it is not just a theory wherein we just have to think whether it is a yes or a no, or whether it can be seen or it can be observed, but you have to think of the data. You have to collect data. You have to gather information so that you can be able to arrive a certain conclusion or recommendation at the end of the process. So this is the take responsive model. It has something to do with the stakeholders. So the curriculum evaluator follows the steps below. So you have here up to 9 steps. So meets with the stakeholders to identify their perspectives and intention regarding curriculum evaluation. So in the curriculum evaluation, it's not only about the internal stakeholders like the teachers, the principal, the supervisors, but also the external stakeholders. So these are the parents, the LGU, the organization outside the school. And then you have here the step two, draws from the step on documents to determine the scope of the evaluation, observes the curriculum closely to identify the unintended sense of implementation and any deviations from announced intents, and so on and so forth. Well, at the end of it, um, there is, uh, you have to decide with stakeholders the most appropriate formats for the report. So there are a lot of steps, but on in each step, it is very specific as to what to do in order to implement that step in the stake responsive model. So we also have here Seriven consumer-oriented evaluation. So it is more on the evaluation of a textbook or any resources that has title, authors, publisher, copyright date, and material evaluator. So who are those who will write under material evaluator? So for example, you are the one who will be evaluating the textbook. So therefore, your name should be written under material evaluator. The title is the title of the book, authors or author, publisher, and so on. So use the following codes to rate the material. So if it is positive, it means yes or good quality. If it is negative or minus sign, means no or poor quality. Zero means all right but not good quality, and NA means that it is not applicable. So this is the checklist in order for you to follow the Seriven evaluation model. Okay, so for example, contents are up to date, is it plus, zero, and so on. All right, so this is very applicable in evaluating the textbook that you will be using and those textbooks that will be used by your students. So these are the simple ways of curriculum evaluation process. Does the curriculum emphasize learning outcomes? Does the implemented curriculum require less demands? Can this curriculum be applied to any particular level? Can the curriculum aspects be assessed as written, taught, supported, tested, and learned? Does the curriculum include formative assessment? Does the curriculum include summative assessment? Does the curriculum provide quantitative methods of assessment? And does the curriculum provide for qualitative methods of assessment? And can the curriculum provide the data needed for decision making? Are the findings of evaluation available to stakeholders? Now, these are questions that you may answer it with a yes or a no. And then again, um, as I stated, it is simple ways of curriculum evaluation process. So, meaning to say that there might be complicated steps, but these are simple steps that you can do in order to evaluate a curriculum, different curriculum. It may be, but basically, the one that you're using is a lesson plan. Then, therefore, you can use these steps in order to evaluate your own lesson plan. Or it can also be done in other ways because in question number 10 are the findings of evaluation available to stakeholders and so on and so forth. So these are the steps in conducting a curriculum evaluation. So you have here 8 steps and what to consider. So identifying primary audiences. Who are they? These are the stakeholders, the school heads, the teachers, the managers, administrators, and so on and so forth. So when you were able to identify the primary audience, then proceed to the next, identifying critical issues or problems. So what are the outcomes? The expected, the desired, and intended. And then what are the processes, implementation, or resources, as well as the inputs. So who are involved here? Again, these are the primary audience. Identifying data source. who are the sources, what are the possible sources of information during the evaluation. So you can use existing documents, the people, the stakeholders, the records, evaluation studies, and then identifying techniques for collecting data. So how are you going to collect the data? So you can make interview, you can make checklist, anecdotal records, sample of students' work, or you can also use standardized test. Because when we speak of collecting data in the curriculum evaluation, so basically you need to get data from the students or anyone who are involved in the curriculum development or implementation. Identifying established standards and criteria, standards set by agencies like that of the DepEd, the CHED, or other professional organization. So, identifying technique in data analysis, content analysis, process analysis, statistics, comparison, evaluation process. And then after that, um, by the way, no, in data analysis, you are talking about statistics and how you are going to interpret the result of your statistics. And then after that, you have to prepare the evaluation of the report. So what happened during the evaluation? So there could be narrative, a discussion, and then you have to prepare modes of display. So how are you going to prepare the output of the curriculum evaluation? So that ends the first topic. Let us now move on to curriculum evaluation through learning assessment. So we have here knowledge, process, understanding, performance, or KPUP levels of learning outcomes. So KPUP reflect different learning outcomes that are arranged in hierarchy or complexity. Knowledge being the basic level of learning outcomes and performance being the advanced level of learning outcomes. Now, basically in the under the K to 12, specifically in high school, you have only three components for the computation of grades. The first one is the written work, the second is the performance, and the last one is the quarterly test. However, during the pandemic, so we only have written test and then performance test. So there's no quarterly test. So these are the levels of learning, description of learning outcomes, and guide questions to the teachers. For example, under level one, so this is under the knowledge, all types of knowledge, factual knowledge, conceptual, procedural, metacognition. So what are the possible questions? So what do you want your students to know in terms of facts, concept, procedure, and multiple thinking? Okay, so it is basic knowledge. No? So what are those things that you would like to impart to your students? And then example is that parts of the body, the sky is blue, how to dissect frog, describing a typhon from different views, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is the usual thing, the usual knowledge that we use. Memorizing things, identifying anything by observation. So that is knowledge. So level two is about process, skills that the students use based on facts and information for making meaning and understanding. So guide question, what do you want your student to do with what they know? So for example, they know now the parts of the body. So what are the things that your student should do in order for them to apply the parts of the body? So for example, identify the parts of the frog after dissecting it. Now, on the level three, we have here understanding or the big ideas. And for us, these are the questions that can be asked. What do you want students to understand? And how do the elements of weather interact to produce, eliminate, or produce, eliminate change? So it is more complex than the first two learning level. Now, in the level four, you're talking about the product or the performance. What products or performance as evidence of learning, portfolio, painting, drama, research projects, and so on and so forth. For the guide question, can you place in a portfolio all the evidence to show your learning outcome? Can you create a one-act play showing the principles in dramatization and present a research report on conservation of indigenous plants? So that ends the second topic. So let us now move on to this is still part of it. Okay, so we have here the knowledge, still the KPUP, but it is now under learning outcomes. So these are the types of tests to measure knowledge, process, and understanding. And I am sure that you are very much familiar since I know that you are taking another subject, which is the assessment of learning. So we have here the objective type of test that includes pencil paper test, simple recall, alternative response test, multiple choice test, matching type test, subjective test. These are all objective tests. Except for, of course, the subjective test is under the has this essay. Now, for the performance assessment tools, we have here the checklist, the rating scale, and rubrics for portfolio. So now, let us now move on to the last topic, which is planning, implementing, evaluating, understanding the connections. So this is the pi connection. Pi because it is planning, P for planning, I for implementing, and E for evaluating. So that's why the term that we can use is pi connection. So what's the sense of this? Now, as you can see on the pie chart, that planning may come, evaluating is next to planning, and planning is next to implementing, implementing is next to evaluating, so on and so forth. Now, planning is an essential, is an initial process in curriculum development. It includes determining the needs through an assessment. Needs would include those of the learners, the teachers, the community, and the society as this relate to curriculum. So in curriculum development, the first stage actually is planning. No? Before the implementation of the K-12 curriculum, there are a lot of plans. These plans were changed, revised, then another plan will emerge, and then it will be revised again, and then another emerging of plan up until such time that it became perfect. And of course, even until now, there is still a lot of changes. So, um, who are those people who may be consulted in order to determine whether it is a good plan or what are the needs? So these are the internal and external stakeholders. So the learners, the teachers, the community, and so on. So after the needs have been identified, the intended outcomes are set. And of course, as we all know, that whenever we make intended learning outcomes or objectives, it should follow the acronym SMART. So an example of curriculum plan is a lesson plan. And the end product of planning is a written document. So the planned curriculum which was written should be implemented. It has to be put into action or used by a curriculum implementer who is the teacher. And the curriculum planner can also be a curriculum implementer. And the skill and the ability of the teacher to impart guide learning are necessary in curriculum implementation. And it is necessary that the end in view or the intended outcomes will be achieved in the implementation. So, curriculum evaluation as a big idea may follow evaluation models which can be used for programs and projects. So those things that I have discussed a while ago, the different curriculum evaluation models can be used in this part of the discussion. So when used for assessment of learning, which is also evaluation, more attention is given to levels of assessment for the levels of learning outcomes as defined by the DepEd. In place of description for the proficiency, the learner is described by the qualified values of the weighted test scores in an intervals in an interval scale. So that ends my discussion about this curriculum evaluation. So I hope to see you again by next time. So keep safe, everyone.